Hello and welcome to the RatNest podcast, episode number 76. I don't know, with Isaac Roller. Hey,
Hey, Isaac.
Hi, how's it going?
Good,
Yeah.
Isaac. How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing real good. Life's a bit hectic, but I'm enjoying it.
Hey, hectic means busy, and busy usually means good, so that's good, man.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many people are watching as opposed to listening, but I'm broadcasting here from my baby's room, so that's responsible for most of the hecticness.
Hey, hats off, bro. You know, you got to make time for us and still take care of the baby. That's multitasking. That right there is a talent.
Yeah, well, I want him to grow up and have a dad that's not just going to work and being a zombie and coming home and sitting on the couch watching TV. So
Respect.
yeah, but yeah, if you guys see me playing with this plastic broccoli, then that's why.
Yeah. Hashtag dad life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Well, yeah. Thanks again for sitting down, making the time for us. I know we kind of had some back and forth, but I'm excited to kind of jump into what you've been up to lately and talk about the project that we worked on a few months back too.
Yeah. So that was my biggest one ever, but it was actually one of the first things I wrote when I started making comics again.
Real quick, let me jump in and just make sure everybody knows Isaac is a comic book maker and illustrator and author from New York, and we've had the pleasure of working with him over the last few months and putting out a project. So that's what we're talking about right now for everybody listening.
Yeah, which the project is called Micropolis. It's standalone graphic novel. I wrote it, I drew it. There it is.
Hey, in the flesh.
They printed it, and it looks pretty damn good.
Hey, I'm glad it worked out, man, because sometimes, you send it off to the printer and then things come back and it's not quite what it seems like. Even just the difference between a computer screen and a printed product, sometimes things vary a little. So I was really happy that it worked out the way it did and that you were happy with everything.
Well, you were good enough to print out a few different versions. I get the layers. I make like different adjustments. Like I have the blacks, which are the lines, and then like a dark gray and a medium gray. And so I adjusted those differently in different combinations and had you print them out and then send me pictures of what looked best. And we were in agreement that having it a certain way looked best, and that really helped out.
Absolutely,
I recommend everyone do that.
Yeah, it does make a big difference, and sometimes it's hard to visualize a whole book when you're just doing a few test pages. Some stuff's just a little more saturated or a little more like ink heavy on some pages. Yeah. But I thought we did a pretty good job about coming to a consensus of like how we wanted everything to feel.
Yeah, and after I'm done, my process is pretty much like I come up with the story, and then I lay it all out, and then I draw it. And then the last part, which is sometimes I feel like longer than all the other parts combined, is just like being really finicky, like obsessing over every detail, making sure that like the black point is the same on every page.
Mm-hmm. And then those types of things they're either project makers or project killers. You can do the entire project and get to that point and like Dr. Dre just decide never to put out the album years, maybe, or it can be the thing that just defines it to the perfect max, to the subconscious level, like you're saying, that black points are the same on every page and everything's spaced properly. That moment is make or break.
Yeah, well, I don't recommend anyone who has my book do this, but you can go through it and you can find the like 5 speech balloons that the font is just like 20% sloppier than it is in the rest of the book, because I wrote it really quick by hand. And then I went through and I like made it all nicer, and I missed those 5 balloons.
Hey, Easter egg hunt in
Yeah.
Micropolis.
So when you wrote it all out, you went back and redid everything, but you just missed those ones, or did you make edits of those 5 balloons and then forget
I
to like?
missed those ones.
Oh, okay, I see. Nice. That's
Yeah,
fun.
I think it's just 1 page or
Got you.
something.
You know what's wild though? That to me is one of the most beautiful things about like the DIY zine scene and comic scene. And graphic novel scene too, is it makes you there's a little bit more authenticity there. You know that it was the author going through and editing it and reading everything and adding the additions and the edits and the marks. And you get to kind of see that. It's almost like a little peek through of like, oh, this is what it looked like before it was all perfected. And there's something good, like awesome about that. Just little aspect that always seems to poke through no matter what.
Well, what I love, you're freezing a little bit.
Uh-oh, can you hear us?
I missed some of that, but what I was gonna say is what I love about comics in general is there's really just like there aren't quite any formalized rules. I mean, there are sets of best practices, but like those are very subject to change, and everybody sort of knows what a comic is. So anybody can just make a whole comic, but then they don't think about all the technical aspects, like a lot of the formatting, a lot of the panel arrangements.
Yeah.
So they just end up doing it intuitively. And everybody comes up with these just wild solutions to those little comics problems. And seeing how it just like kind of organically happens and it has this consistency through the whole book, or sometimes it changes throughout the whole book. And seeing the like grammar of comics be interpreted through the filter of everybody's like each author's individual quirks is like one of the best things about comics, especially the DIY ones.
Totally. You mentioned that this is like the longest project that you put out thus far. We're sitting at I think 96 pages on this one, right?
Yeah.
But on your other books, I mean, what scale were the like Dreamtown comics and stuff?
Yeah, so those I tried to keep at 28 pages each. Although only one of them is like one continuous story throughout the 28 pages. So yeah, they're very much like short stories. And Micropolis it's got a higher page count, but it's still a pretty quick read. But so yeah, that's there's Micropolis and the story from Dreamtown 3 are the two longest like full stories, I would say. They're sort of like novellas, I guess. And then the rest of them are short stories. I've got Dreamtown 4 is the first part of a two-parter, which will, if I ever finish it, be around 50 pages. But like a lot denser than Micropolis.
Denser in dialogue or denser in design?
Like panels per page and just like world building and stuff. I've actually got half a mind to never reprint Dreamtown 4 and then redo the whole thing as like a long epic.
Oh, okay. That'd be rad, dude. The story's wild. I wanted to ask you, like, what inspired that? I mean, there's a lot of undertones that go through it, but what was it that inspired you to like put that story out the way that you did? It's like,
for Micropolis?
Yeah, for
we talking Micropolis?
Yeah,
so I actually have like a straightforward inspiration point, although the actual story is like nothing like it. So I was working with I was doing all these like large illustrations. They were, I don't know, like 5 feet by 3 feet. Um, and I wanted to draw like individual people, but also like whole little worlds in the background. Um, but I ended up not wanting to like obsess over the perspective so much. I did a lot of stuff, cool stuff with perspective in them, but so um, I would have sort of like medium ground, larger figures, and then these tiny figures, but they weren't quite in the background, like they were far away. Like you could still see a lot of detail of them. So I started thinking of those little figures as the Lilliputians.
Okay.
So for people who haven't read the story, uh, Micropolis is the story of the Isle of Lilliput from Gulliver's Travels, but it's set in the modern day, and the island has been colonized by the English, like after Gulliver came, for the past few hundred years. And it's the story of the Lilliputians rebelling against their large-sized colonists. But you know, it's like it's more post-colonial.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was drawing all these drawings with the bigger people and the Lilliputians, and I got it in my head that I should do a story with them. And then I was sitting and drawing, and I was listening to a story on the radio about a woman running for some like small political office, and she there was a guy who had run unopposed for the last like 10 elections in this, and when she ran, it like freaked him out so much that he totally overreacted. He hired a like political hit firm that had ties to the Mossad to run like a smear campaign on her. And this total overreaction by the like powerful figure in the story against the like not powerful, the woman who represented the people, well, it totally backfired, and he ended up looking like a total schmuck, and he lost. But so that was sort of the basis. That was the basis of thinking, okay, this story needs to be based on I have trouble talking about it because it's hard to say like who are the big people.
Right, what they represent.
Yeah, the Lilliputians have a name, but the big people are they're just people. I call them Homo sapiens in the book. Like I have a little diagram of like how big Homo sapiens are and how big Homo lilliputus is.
And
so
that,
yeah,
that kind of is open to a little bit of interpretation too, like in the sense of they could represent kind of whatever power struggle you want it to represent, in the sense of like someone that's your everyday person, which is kind of the little people, and then what
right.
those bigger in control people are.
Yeah, well, it's very much taking that power dynamic and just like a power dynamic that exists in a lot of different ways,
Right.
And then just displaying it as size, something that's just like purely physical.
Right. You know, it's cool to have the perspective too. I think Gulliver's Travels was one of the first that took the perspective of the giant and showed, no, this is just normal sized person, and that you're the small one over there, rather than it being us as the small one that is constantly being like attacked by
right.
or whatever. And that shift in perspective and the way that you're able to grab that political happening or whatever you want to call it and like relate it back to that, dude, that's an awesome like line to draw and to be able to connect those. And
yeah, well, I had to have the groundwork of having already been drawing the Lilliputians to sort of like to be like primed for it.
Yeah.
And
you're the style in which you draw in, I was just gonna mention, because when I look at like some of the older work, you work in like a similar illustrative style as far as like character expressions and maybe like body type or like face structure when you're drawing cartoons. Is that something that you stuck with? Is it a conscious decision to kind of keep it the same, or am I completely off by even saying
that? So I've done like a few different styles, I feel like. For one thing, I didn't do color in Micropolis, which I've worked with a lot. But yeah, I have like a cartoony style. In college, I was doing a lot of really like twisted, grotesque, like cross-hatchy, like, like nude figures with 7 heads, like bursting out of an egg or something,
that?
And I don't know, that got like a little dark for me. I did this series that was sort of inspired by Aztec art, and it was a lot of like, like skeleton babies with heads that were upside down, and then like whole cities were growing out of the top of them. And it got like I was like, this doesn't really match like who I am as a person. Like, I do think it's sick.
Yeah.
Because like I like to look at that kind of stuff, but like I'm kind of a cartoony guy,
Yeah, definitely.
That's funny that you're saying that, because as I was introduced to your work through Micropolis, and then I started looking, and I was like, I saw the transition, but there is such a different authenticity almost to your cartoony stuff, as opposed to like the Aztecian stuff. And I guess authenticity more of like a character style, you know what I mean? Like I saw such a transition as I was going back through, scrolling from recent to back, and it was a lot of fun to see like that, an obvious change, and it's almost like you could see that decision being made through the art.
Yeah, well, like I was saying earlier, I did cartoons. I made comics in high school. Me and my buddy printed a comic called Peculiarities. I can't say if it was any good, but it was like we were doing the whole like self-publishing thing, but then we sort of like split in half. Like, he got more into writing and he actually became a journalist, and I got more into art. And I would spend like more and more time on the cover and less time on the contents each issue, until eventually like one issue had like 7 covers and then like 2 comics in it. And so then I kind of took a little break. But yeah, I feel like once I got back into comics, a lot of things, like a lot of disparate elements sort of like came together for me.
How were you in school? So did you have a focus on illustration in college, or what kind of art were you going to school for?
I studied fine art drawing, which looking back, I probably should have studied illustration, because it would have helped me with a lot of the like book formatting and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I had an idea that I would be like a gallery artist. But yeah,
Did you never tried to pursue that at all?
Oh, I did. I just didn't stand a chance. Yeah, man, the whole gallery world. I can get into that later, because I worked in the art world, but as like a just like a bitch boy for all the galleries.
Mhm.
So yeah, I saw it. It's totally sleazy and weird.
Hmm.
There's some good stuff being made, but yeah, it's like it's not my scene at all.
Got you.
Comics is full of a lot more cool people.
Hell yeah, it is, dude. We've got adopted into the comics book world, and it's just like the most friendly and like compassionate people I've ever met. Like strangers that actually want good for people. It's beautiful.
Uh, well, it's because everyone knows they're not going to be the like Damien Hirst of comics, you know? Like when that level of success is just off the table, then it leaves a lot more room to be relaxed.
Yeah,
About
it makes you. It's a reality check. It's like, okay, well, there's room for one of those, and it's already happened. So let's all just enjoy ourselves here.
yeah, you know, and it's also just like, you know, I worked as an art handler, so I was like moving this stuff around and setting up these huge shows, and like, you know, dragging 3,000-pound sculptures in like up to the top floor of high-rise buildings and stuff. Like, there's none of that. The physical part of it is a lot easier too. Like, it's just you print your books and then you trade them around, and after you print it, it's not that like you sell it but you still have it, you know. It's like uh it's just
I mean,
I don't know,
definitely
it's
more
not as
more low
complicated.
key.
Yeah, exactly. And
And
it can be more about the art itself rather than like the collector's value or like your name
right,
or whatever, you
the
know. I mean,
name
that stuff
and
still matters, but
it's yeah, it's something that I think when you're young, you don't realize kind of that there's like a game to be played if you want to be a gallery artist or like a
oh
fine
yeah.
artist. And yeah, I think it's pretty discouraging that it has to be that way. And more power to you if you can play that game and like run in those circles. But like, I could never do it. I just like, I wasn't good enough, and two, like, I never wanted to be the guy that has to like kiss ass to get ahead. You know?
Yeah, yeah, no, a couple of the people I knew as art handler uh, are like kind of blowing up and they're doing good and they're making cool work. Um, and they got like their little studios, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it also just I think when I was trying to make gallery art, is there was something missing, and that was the story. That was the like sequential nature of it. Um, so yeah, when I started making comics, it just made a lot more sense. And I actually wrote. Uh, so in 2019, I moved from Brooklyn um, up to the top of Manhattan, which it's basically like a whole nother city, you know.
Hmm.
New York is huge, um, and that was right when I realized I needed to be making comics too. And it was this big creative time for me, and I wrote all these stories. And that's actually when I wrote Micropolis, but it was like too big. Like I needed to like practice with some smaller stories first. Um, and so I put out a few of the Dream Towns. I was in some anthologies. Um, During COVID, I did a diary comic, which was pretty fun.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
When
people got a lot out for their chest during COVID through that, man. Being able to
Yeah.
put something out every day.
Yeah. Well, I had to step away from what I had been doing and just like focus on sort of what was right in front of me because I saw the longer like fiction stories um, as like a long term thing that was saying something about like the world and where it should be going. And then in COVID, I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. So I was just like, I'm gonna write a 3-page or a 3-panel comic about like this funny thing I saw in the park.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that was sort of the point of that series was that even in lockdown, there's like still weird, wacky things happening.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious when you're like starting to write, when you're starting to write one of these more like fictional, longer spread books that aren't
Mhm.
just small comics or 2 or 3 page comics, but actually have a lot of plot and development. Do you approach it like you would like a movie where you write out like maybe exterior, interior, or like the background, or do you write the story and then just have a way of developing it into like how you want the comic to be, or do you write all dialogue like a movie script would be?
Um, yeah, so I've actually done it sort of every which way. Um, so Micropolis, I did a storyboard. Um, I just I would lay out like uh probably like 30 panels, like 2 pages worth of like 2 by 2 panels at a time. And then I would just go straight in with pen, scribble what I wanted, and like, the text would go over the character's face
Yeah.
or whatever. Like I just had to get it out. I had a really clear vision of that in my head as like a 1-2 thing. Um, and then afterwards I added in like in I would add little chunks into the storyboard, or I would switch a couple panels around or whatever. But that came out as a pretty, like I said, it was like a very creative time, like writing wise. Um, so that came out as like a it just flowed.
It came pretty naturally. You attribute that with the move from Brooklyn to Upper Manhattan? Do you think that's like what kind of like had the catalyst to like get your juices flowing?
Yeah, like it kind of changed my whole life.
That's
Um,
saying something.
yeah, and it was just like uh it was the same city, but I'd only been up here like 4 times
Okay,
before
trip
that.
out.
Yeah. Um, and like, yeah, it was like an hour and a half subway ride to get to see any of my friends or anything. Um, and it's also just a totally different like area up here. It's not I like it, but it's not cool like Brooklyn is.
Mm.
Like there's no like fun bars with cute names and that like let your dog in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, but uh it's a nice place to live. There's a big park. Um and it was also kind of right when I realized that like if being a gallery artist didn't happen while I was in Brooklyn, it definitely wasn't going to happen here. Uh, and I was already just feeling like a change anyway. Um, so yeah, it was a lot of things that all happened at once, and I think they manifested as me writing a lot of stories.
Right on.
It's so wild
Um,
how that like oftentimes that change, or that almost like you're saying, letting go of that dream of like, well, if it wasn't going to happen there, it's not going to happen here. All right, what's next? And then that made room for that muse to show up and just blast you with this artistic time, which obviously paid off because my Micropolis is awesome.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. I also had I was still working in Brooklyn, so I had a like hour and change commute every morning. So I actually um, I drew the whole storyboard on the train.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I'm at the last stop here. So I would get the seat in the corner, which we call the hobo seat, because it's like it's tucked in a little nook there.
Yeah, yeah.
And only one other person can sit next to you. And if you look like a weirdo, like writing a manifesto, um, they'll probably wait until the train is totally crowded to sit down. Um, so yeah, that I wrote as a storyboard. I've written scripts too. Um, my current project is I sent you some pages of that, right?
Yeah, this is from the ones that were in color, right? The different
Yeah.
treatments that you did. Yeah, I
Yeah,
got those.
so it's called Mushroom Moon, and it's about an astronaut who takes magic mushrooms and he goes on a hallucinatory trip to the moon,
Nice.
or back to the moon rather, because he's been
Yeah,
before.
Yeah. Hey,
yeah, right on.
I was looking through the test pages and I was cracking up, bro. Just the dialogue and the illustrations together, it's right spot on, dude.
Yeah, great. I'm glad. Yeah, so it's he gets he gets depressed because the public doesn't care about space science anymore. They like don't care that he went to the moon. So the doctor prescribes him magic mushrooms. Um, and he goes up there, and instead of just like barren rock, it's like there's all these different kinds of mushrooms growing, and there's this little mushroom man who's sort of his trip.
It's
What's
like
the word?
like spirit animal
Yeah,
guide.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you know how they say when you go on a trip, you're supposed to have someone who can kind of like guide you through it.
yeah.
Like a trip sitter or shaman.
Yeah, a trip sitter. That's it. And actually, another fun little Easter egg is the Mushroom Man has like the same face as the psychiatrist who prescribed him the shrooms.
Hey, nice little pull there.
Um, and so the trip sitter, he explains to him that all things, especially mushrooms, are like very ephemeral and they grow up really fast and then they rot and they spoil and so the way that's laid out is each 2-page spread is like superimposed over a picture of the moon, and each time you turn the page the phase of the moon changes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for that, all I did was write like, I need to get from this point to this point on these 2 pages, and I need to do it in 12 panels because it's the panel grid is the same on each spread.
So you have to make what's going on in the story coincide with like the phase of the moon and like the change of the day and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's rad, dude. What a deep concept. That's cool.
Yeah, so that was all sort of like, I had the story sort of sketched out and I did some character designs and whatnot, but that one I wanted to be a very like a book art based piece, you know, so that changed my approach to how I wrote it.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. It's like it's hard to kind of find balance in something, especially I don't know, relating it to like a background or a change throughout the book that might not be the forefront of the illustration or the drawing, but to link it together like that, I mean, it takes like an extra level of thought and like consciousness to even think of that. Like it's pretty rad, man.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like it would really create some staunch boundaries, like you said, like, oh, it has to get this statement done in 12 panels so that it can move to the next thing. Like it really it handcuffs you as far as like how detailed or how lucid you can really
Yeah.
be.
Did you have hangups with that?
I would if I had to do it for every single book I ever worked on, but you know, sometimes being handcuffed can be fun. So, you know, next book, probably not, but for this one, I enjoyed it. You guys printed the most recent clusterfucks, right?
No, not. We've done the first 3 or 4.
Okay.
Cameron did it on his own this last time.
Okay. Good for him.
Shout out, great artist.
Anyway, yeah, that was how I became aware of you guys.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, in that one, I have a really like formatty comic.
I don't think. Shoot, I'm not sure if I remember it. It's in the newest one.
in number 5. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. I gotta go check it back. I didn't realize you were in there.
Hey,
Um,
so you mentioned earlier that, you know, if you go through Micropolis, you pulled the color out of it, and you really went just like black, gray, white, kind of like almost three color. But
mm,
said that you had worked in color in the past. Did you find it easier or harder to kind of work in that gray scale?
um, I think I find it easier to work, but I think I like the finished product more when there's color.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, I kind of sometimes I worry that I'm like afraid of full black, you know?
Hmm.
Like I'm always jealous of cartoonists who can just do like a huge chunk of black over like three
Right.
quarters of the panel and make it look great. Um, the guy, the guy I used to do that comic with in high school would have just always like his blacks were just like you could get so lost in them, you know.
Oh yeah.
And he would do these like wrinkly faces, and so they were filled with detail, but then down deep in the wrinkles, like it would just get so like dark, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm just, I don't know. Sometimes I worry that I get like scared bringing it all the way there.
That's
Um,
uh that's definitely something that I've had a hard time with. Like I could do regular, consistent, quality black line work, I think, in my own opinion. But to do almost like a negative, like to approach it like the background's going to be black and that
uh-huh.
the negative space is really going to be what's standing out. I have like a hang up in my brain. Like it's hard for me to picture things like that.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Um, yeah, and then but with color, I feel like I have a pretty good. I don't know. I just my color pieces they come out fairly nice.
You think that's from having like that art background and having like a concept of color and like usable like color contrast?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just I mean, not necessarily from going to school because I don't know if I may have just spent 4 years flushing my money down the toilet. Um, but like just painting,
Yeah,
drawing,
yeah. Just
doing
learning
it a
from
lot.
mistakes over time.
Yeah.
It's
Right
the
on.
beauty of art, man. You can never waste time if you're making it. There's
Definitely.
never a time that if you're creating something that it's a waste, because you get that experience and you get that next level, or the next time you can remember that I did this last time and I didn't like it, or I liked it a lot. And that like
Mhm.
that's what really forms so much of like a style or a personality, you know?
Yeah, and just experimenting all the time, like there aren't not every piece is for, you know, like is gonna go up in the Met or whatever.
Yeah.
But like you do different stuff, and then you learn like you get like new bags of tricks,
Totally.
you
And
know?
I think that comes too with like watching how other people work. Like
Yeah.
for me at least, like I'm a more visual learner, I feel like. So when I see someone do something, I can go home and try it in a similar way to see how that feels or how it works. But sometimes it's hard when it's just talked about to kind of really get the nuance of what they're talking about.
Yeah. I also read a million comics.
Yeah,
Like
that helps.
pretty much I don't read regular books.
Graphic
Because
Right
novels.
when I
on.
do, I'm just like, where's the pictures at?
Well, just like our English teachers used to tell us, like, if you want to expand your vocabulary, read books. Like, if you want
Uh-huh.
to expand your vocabulary in graphic novels, read them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it does, it adds the same, it is adding the same as a book would add grammatically to your understanding of the concept.
Hmm.
And it really does show, man, going through Micropolis and seeing the work, like, the understanding of the way that it the flow of the storyline and like the concepts, like it shows that there's some understanding there.
Well, actually, Micropolis is the first book I did digitally.
Okay.
And I actually decided to work directly on top of my storyboard. Because there's something about when it first comes out that's just like, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's that it's just that that's the first way that I saw it. So I can't see it any other way now. Like when you see the movie before you read the book, and then you always see, you know, Matt Damon's face as that character.
Right.
But yeah, there's a very like, there's like an immediacy to the storyboard. And so I had to just, I like, you know, I laid out the panels the way that I wanted them, and then I fit the storyboard panel in there, and I erased the border, and I made the text not covering the people's faces or whatever. And I got rid of like a lot of the real scribbly stuff. But there's a lot of just like expressions in there that come straight from the very first moment I drew it on the train.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I find like in my own work, it's like a lot of the time, the first run, I like to work like in one shot if I can. I feel like it's most of the time it comes out like you're saying, like just almost a little more pure to the intention, and it either comes out like the way you want it to, and it's hard to improve on it, or it comes out like shit and you just don't use it. You know, it's like that's my experiences at least. It's like one or the other, but a lot of time it is those first ideas that get the spark going.
Yeah, well, the story in Dreamtown 4 was the only one I ever wrote just as a script. I had gotten a new job and I wasn't doing my grueling commute anymore. So I typed it out, and it just, there were a few things I did in that I wouldn't do again. Like I drew it by hand, but I did like computer type.
Okay.
And I think I chose a pretty good font, but it just didn't, it didn't sit right. And doing it from a script, it just didn't have that immediacy. And this is why this is going to be a project, maybe the next one I work on now that I'm done with Mushroom Moon. I'm gonna, I think I'm probably gonna redo that one. It's like a longer epic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sort of the size and shape of Micropolis, but hopefully a good bit fatter.
Okay, right on. Yeah, it's awesome, man. Yeah. So I mean, we got some more projects in the works. You sent me some files that we're gonna get going for you. So for some reprints, I'm assuming of Dreamtown 1.
Yeah, I just got into SPX actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I'm definitely gonna need those. I was planning on doing some smaller shows, and there's a farmers market in my neighborhood that people have started setting up little booths and doing like sort of a crafts fair. There's a woman who sells handmade soaps. There's a photographer. There's a painter. There's a woman who sells weed, but packaged in like cute little like bespoke boxes and baggies and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was another cartoonist too. Unfortunately, she got a job, which is just the worst. So she can't do it anymore. But yeah, we had like a little artist alley going. And then, I'm talking to someone about doing a smaller show in Queens, but SPX is like one of the big ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Congrats.
So,
really cool.
I just found out about that today.
Nice, dude. Congrats. Yeah. What day is that?
That's September 9th and 10th.
Okay, yeah, that weekend. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and my buddies Know Nothing magazine, you guys know them?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the people that went through Clusterfucks went through them too.
Nice.
Got you. Okay.
And yeah, I think that might have been, they got in touch with me, and then I met some of the people who was doing comics for them, and then one of them, Brian Judge, he told me about Clusterfucks, and then through Clusterfucks I learned about you guys. So
Nice.
it's all connected. Anyway, they're gonna come. They're gonna table with me.
Oh, awesome.
Oh yeah, dude. That's awesome. That
So
those
yeah,
big
we'll
shows,
have a
I've
little
never
crew go. What's that?
I've never done a show that size. Uh it seems like an awesome opportunity just to, for the foot traffic alone, and the people that go to that like are specifically looking for that kind of artwork and that kind of work, right? But
Yeah,
those
well,
those
it's gonna.
smaller shows, I was just say those smaller shows like you were talking about where it's kind of a mixed bag, like those can be really beneficial too because
Mhm.
everyone brings their friends, and everyone's friends are into different stuff. So it's kind of a
Yeah,
cool melting pot when you get to do those things that are kind of like a hodgepodge of different makers and stuff.
yeah. Well, outside of the farmers market, um, I've only done one other show, which was in like, there were maybe, it was all comics, but there were only maybe 10 or 15 people there. Um, and that was pretty sweet. The Know Nothing crew came up for that too. And yeah, it's so cool to see all the different stuff that people are making. And I imagine SPX will be like that, but like times a million.
Oh yeah. You know, that 5 degrees of separation that exists in that community.
Uh-huh.
It's so funny, man. You talk to someone and they're like, "Oh, I know this person." And you're like, "Holy shit, I know them too. I met them through this person." And they're like, "Oh, I know them too." You know, that just everybody seems to have that point of connection.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that'll be nice too. Up here where I am in like northern Manhattan, it's kind of like isolated from other artists, you know. Like a lot of the other artists who have tables at the farmers market are like kooky old blue-haired ladies, which like I love. Like in Brooklyn, I kind of felt like it was all just about like being young and cool and an artist and like smoking cloves behind the bar or whatever. Um, uh, and I like that here it's like it's a bunch of different types of people, but I do miss, like, I don't know, I miss the cool people, you know.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure.
I'm sure. I mean, it's been years and years and years since I was in Brooklyn. I just visiting,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of like when it started to get pretty trendy,
Uh-huh.
and people were moving to those neighborhoods like Williamsburg and Park Slope and stuff. But they were like 19-year-old like kids doing graffiti on the side of an entire building, and like
Yeah,
there seemed to be like a sense of like there's something happening. And
definitely.
I'm not sure, how much of that still exists. I haven't been back in a long time, but I remember just being like pretty blown away by the amount of work that people were putting up and the amount of like public art that was happening.
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty
there's definitely just like a lot of cool stuff everywhere.
totally. And New
In
York's that city. There's a lot of cool shit everywhere because it is so big, and
Yeah,
all the neighborhoods are different, have their own like vibe and feel to them.
yeah, and up here is great. It's real weird, like old
Yeah.
New York kind of feeling. Just like lots of old characters, lots of old timers who are like dying to tell you about like how horrible it was back in the 80s, but also are like talking about how much they miss it.
Yeah.
And just like all sorts of different people. Like I didn't even know there were so many varieties, you know?
I mean,
And yeah, there's like a lot of kids and a lot of dogs and a big park. And so, yeah, it's a happening place to be. But you don't feel like you're in the center of everything as much.
yeah, I get that. So, All Press Expo. September 9th and 10th.
Yeah.
And
I'll be
anything
there.
else you have coming up before that? I'm not sure, when this will air, but I just want to, if there is something you want to mention.
If anyone does happen to be in the Inwood area, or if they feel like taking a long subway ride, I'm having a show at the Inwood Public Library.
Nice.
I'm gonna show the comic Mushroom Moon. I'm gonna show all the pages laid out so people can see the transition of the phases of the moon.
Oh,
Right
that's
on.
And I might, depending on how much time I have all sorts of ideas, but I also have a baby, so I end up only being able to do like a third of them. I want to do a window display. We'll see if I can make that happen. But I think it would be pretty sweet to do some like big old mushroom cutouts.
Yeah.
And then have a full moon hanging above them.
Nice.
That'd be rad.
It reminds me of like, it would lend itself to like the style of almost like the like felt and like cardboard construction paper kind of videos that you make when you're a kid, or like, almost like a diorama made out of like the, I don't know, safety scissors era when you're a kid.
Yeah. Well, I love doing crafty stuff too. That was what I feel like in college I wasn't flushing my money down the toilet. Was I learned how to weld. I learned how to do a lot of woodworking. I learned how to do ceramics. And just like, yeah, I had the space to make like big stuff. And like those skills have actually helped me get jobs.
Oh yeah.
Nobody's falling all over themselves to get my drawings.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like have worked doing carpentry, so that might have been worth it.
I'm kind of struggling with that right now, because I'm like, do I go back to school for anything? But I wasn't a great student and I didn't really like being in school, so I'm like, if I go back, I'd almost just rather go to trade school and learn electrical engineering or something that's useful.
Yeah, doing a trade is great. I'm kind of lucky here in New York because I can do trades that are like art adjacent,
Yeah.
like working as an art handler. I was building a lot of crates. I was fabricating stretchers sometimes, or building panels. I've worked as an artist assistant a little bit. I don't know if you know this though, artists are crazy. So
Yeah.
it can be a little
Dude,
difficult.
I was gonna say, how is that? Did you do a lot of work for, you don't have to name names or anything, and you don't have to say it if you don't want, but like, I know artist assistants that do a good amount of work for the person, but like get absolutely no credit whatsoever.
I spent most of like my like working like career, if you want to call it that, as an art handler. So I did a lot of packaging and moving and hanging and installing for various artists, some of whom are kind of big, some of whom aren't, some of whom are very annoying, some of whom are kind of cool. I only worked for like 3 artists, most of whom it was temporary. One of whom was totally crazy and was like convinced that we, her assistants, were gonna like steal all her ideas. And so she would only show us the little tiny thing that we were meant to work on. Like she'd be like, cut 20 1x6s with like this set of notches carved out of them. And I'd be like, I need to know what this is for, or else it just won't make sense in my head. And I worked for another artist who was crazy in a good way. She was like an assemblage artist. So I would come to her house. She had this magnificent, she was old as shit. She had this magnificent brownstone. And she had one like entire floor just cleared out for her art making. And I would come in the morning and there would just be this brand new pile of garbage. And then there would be like something sort of on the wall, and she would pick things out of the garbage, and she would be like, I need you to like glue and attach all these together as like a frame around this one little thing that I made. And then I would get to work, and she would like retire to her bed and read magazines all day while I did it, and like yell down commands at her housekeeper.
That's
then,
old money New York shit right there.
Yeah, and then she would come and she would see what I did, and she'd be like, "Shit, it's all shit," and then she would take it apart and just like start again the next day. I didn't take it personal though. Like it was just like she needed to see it a bunch of different ways before she was happy with it.
Yeah.
And then last summer, I was welding for a metal sculpture, for like a metal sculptor, and that was really, really fun.
I bet that could be a lot of fun.
Super chill. Yeah. I did like a long paternity leave, and we stayed in a cabin in New Hampshire for like 4 months, and I worked for this metal sculptor up there, just like making sweet metal animals, just like playing with steel and fire.
Yeah, dude, that rules.
Yeah.
I've never learned to weld. I've used like plasma cutter, and just like cutting metal with fire rules.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like work because it's like, I don't know, you feel like you're a little kid, like you're not supposed to be doing it or something.
Yeah, I was using the plasma cutter a lot. She would take these big sheets of metal and she would draw an animal on them, and then it was my job to cut the animal out. And her work sort of verged on that, like, you know, when you're driving through the country, there'll be like a store called like the Sculpture Center, and they'll have different like bears carved out of wood.
Yeah.
For I don't know who buys them. I guess people put them in their lawns.
At their cabin.
Yeah, hers was kind of like a very, very nice version of that.
Yeah, like a little more refined, a little more finished product.
She could really like capture the movement of an animal.
That's sick.
That's a talent, man. Truthfully, being able to grab that movement in a still thing or in a sculpture, really, it's hard to see and even harder to reproduce.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it's sort of like, you know how they say vets should get paid more than doctors because doctors only know how to work on one animal. It's kind of like sometimes you see people doing figure drawing and you're like, that's really nice. Like it really looks like the way a person moves. But she knows how to capture like a fox, bear, elk, like all these different creatures. She just understands the way the like body dynamics and the flow, and she gets the gestures of them.
Oh yeah.
And she's making it out of steel, so that's even crazier.
Yeah. It's not very forgiving.
Yeah, no, it's not the easiest material to manipulate.
Yeah, we're spoiled. I think about that, like friends that do like fabricating and stuff, and it's like, man, if I mess up doing like a digital design, I could just take a couple steps back or like get rid of a layer or like there's ways to throw band-aids on stuff when you're working digitally, you know, that you can't do when you're making sculptures like that. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I've seen some things get messed up, and there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, you just start over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, that's awesome, dude. So we talked a little bit about Micropolis, and I just want to throw it out there that how many do you still have copies left?
I have like 4 copies left or something.
Okay, shit, we'll get them reprinted quick then, because I only think I have 2 or 3.
Okay.
but yeah, I want people to check it out because we talked about a little bit what went into making it, writing it, the influence. But you know, it's
Uh-huh.
worth the read. It's really fun. It to me, it's very like has that cinematic feel. Like you said, it's like almost a direct tie with Gulliver's Travel, even though it's a completely different type of story. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fucking rad, man.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are into it. And thanks for doing this because I often spend all my creative juice on making the thing, and then I got no time or juice left for like marketing, getting it out there, telling people about it. Um, so yeah, doing stuff like this is definitely good. And there's a new one coming out too, the
Yeah.
Mushroom Moon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I when I did the Dream Towns, I would always have a guest artist in the back. And I figured since Mushroom Moon is going to be a floppy too, I would get that tradition going again. Yeah. And this time I decided to pay because it's good to pay people for the do.
That's nice of you.
Yeah, I mean, I got for Dreamtown 4, I got Hyena Hell,
Hell
which
yeah.
I think was a pretty big get.
Sick, yeah.
But this time I just figured, people need money. If I pay, I'll probably get good work. And I've seen it. It's like 90% done, and it looks great. Do you guys know Tony DePasquale? He's also a Clusterfucks alum.
Yeah, we've I didn't print anything for him, but I'm a fan of the Nugget series, and
Yeah.
I get them every time they come out to sell when I table and stuff.
Okay, yeah. So I got him to do it.
Hell yeah, he might actually be on the podcast pretty soon here. He's
Oh yeah, I'll
one of
get
the
that.
people I've reached out to. Actually, I have Hyena Hell on the to reach out list too, but trying to figure out. I'm trying, get a few more under our belt and then start asking friends favors and of friends.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd say name drop me, but I don't even know if she knows who I am.
Nah, it all goes around, man.
Oh, guest star? Yeah, cool. I'll do that.
Nice. Yeah, and
just like, well,
that's
whatever
the
you
beauty.
want about aliens.
That's the beauty of this kind of work is that
Uh-huh.
everyone is usually down to like help each other out, and if
Yeah,
there's a little money involved, that helps.
Yeah, well, it's the thing where nobody's looking at the high heights trying to be the Damien Hirst of comics. They're just so they have more juice, I guess, to look at what's actually around them.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, people are pretty approachable. They're pretty chill, and everybody loves comics.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that doesn't like comics.
That's the thing about the comics world is like people are doing it because they're really into
it. It seems like very passion driven and like authentic to the creators in my experience with it. So it's cool to talk to everybody, and that's why we like doing this, is because everyone has their own. We all have like a lot of similarities, and even some of the stuff we look at how to approach things or what we think about other types of art and formats of putting work out there. But it seems genuine to like the person that's creating it. It's pretty fun.
And I think the other thing that's kind of cool about comics is I don't think like the best comic ever has even been made yet. It's such a young art form that there's still all these different things to try out.
Yeah.
Like areas to explore. Like, I mean, I can't say what they are because if I knew, I would have done them already.
Yeah, you'd be the first. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you can definitely be the first to do something.
And then, like you said, it's like kind of knowing the rules to break them. It's like there are standards or ideas or sets of standards, but ultimately it's up to you to make whatever you think is interesting to look at.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many different kinds of art to bring into the comics world, you know? Like I've seen some just totally abstract comics, you know, things that
Yeah.
exist it's like purely in the picture plane, you know? And those are great too, you know? And then if you're doing that, you can add words to them too. And then it's like, what is it just like a kind of weird visual poetry? Like, is there a plot line to it? Like there's a whole bunch of possibilities.
Yeah, hell yeah. And that's really interesting stuff to me. I like to try to work in that realm of like stream of consciousness.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily um, a written out statement of what you're looking at or an idea, but more of a collection of images and if words are involved that give you a general sense of feeling something.
Yeah, I often feel like my work is kind of like concrete. Like I'm just showing the things that are happening, even though it's like in this fantastical world. Um, but like I'm comfortable with that. I feel like that's how I earn my fantastical worlds is by making the pictures and the words like fairly straightforward.
Yeah. And the way you write and like it presents itself visually, it adds to that concrete kind of feel to it. It is to me, I for lack of a better word, I call it like almost like cinematic. And that's why I asked you kind of how you approach the writing process, whether you know, how which lane you kind of took on that. And so it's cool to hear you talk about it and kind of get inside your head a little bit more than just, you know, looking at the comic.
Yeah, definitely.
But all right, dude, we're gonna wrap it up there. Before
Yeah,
we get
that
out of
sounds
here,
good.
people can check you out on Instagram at Dreamtown Comics. Is it all one word?
Dreamtown.comics. And that's comics with an X, as are all good comics accounts.
There it is. Anything else you want to plug or promote before we get out of here besides Small Press Expo?
Yeah, I'll be at SPX. I'll have the show at the Inwood Library. That's up all of September if you happen to be in the neighborhood. And yeah, Mushroom Moon is coming out. Follow my Instagram, you'll be able to see it. And also, all my stuff is available at isaac-roller.com/comics.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much
having
for
me, guys.
sitting down, dude. It was
Yeah, man. It was
good
fun.
conversation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Anytime you want to chat, if you're ever in the New York City area,
Definitely.
let me know.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get out there. It's been too long since I like New York. I just don't get a chance to get away as often as I would like. So I'll definitely drop you a line if I can plan on getting out there soon. And then we'll
Like I
definitely,
said, I'm living the dad life, so I usually
hey,
don't do much, but maybe I can stop, have a beer or something.
yeah, man, I'll sneak a couple cloves. Yeah, we'll go have a beer.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Oh yeah, man.
All right.
I'll talk to
Later,
you soon,
guys.
brother.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Isaac. Take care, brother.
Oh, when does it come out?
So it'll be a few weeks, but I'll keep you posted. I would say probably mid-August.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right.
All right, man.
Later.
This has been another episode of the RatNest podcast. You can catch us every week on YouTube for video and anywhere you stream your podcast for the audio. Check out ratneststickercode.com for comics, books, zines, prints, and more. And Jim?
I'm Jim.
All right. See you guys.